As we all know, we all have our own examples of life is hard. And the question is how we relate to it. We have all these experiences that keep challenging us. Life can also be very good, and it's just as important in how we relate to the good things that happen, to the moments of joy and excitement and happiness, that we not get caught up in those emotions and yield ourselves into grasping, into wanting things to continue that are impermanent. So our inclination, as a result of the four conditions of being human that are beyond our control, is to make life harder. Life is hard, we make it harder. And we do have our own resources, the 5 characteristics of our enoughness, that are the foundation for how we choose to relate to our experiences. And in this series on how we relate, we will talk several times about cultivating space, discernment, and intention. Putting ourselves in a position where we have the freedom to choose. And we use discernment, the capacity to see clearly, to sift things apart, not get caught up in emotion and delusion, and then to form intention about how we're going to show up. So I suspect that all of you are familiar now with what happened with Rob and Tim and me last week. As I said in the email, we got off to this great start, gathering on Sunday evening. We were the absolute picture of patience among the three of us and coordinated effort to get all the electronics set up properly. Turns out Rob has multiple devices and systems attached to his TV, and it was a hell of a time getting the TV to recognize my computer. But eventually we did. Our patience outlasted the cantankerous quality of the TV set. I really thought it was pretty cool. It's probably one of the benefits of being old, that you're less likely to blame others and be so damned impatient as we are in our youth. But on Tuesday morning, Rob woke up and said, "I think I need to go to the hospital. I think I've got an infection." And Rob's had lots of health issues, and so the only reasonable choice is to go to the hospital. Many of us might have dealt with this by just going to see a primary care physician and getting some antibiotics. But they took it very seriously, was in the hospital for 4 days, and that scuttled all our plans to leave on Tuesday and go over to Western Michigan, where we'd all grown up in Grand Rapids, and visit various places of our youth. It was a feeling of, for me, disappointment, sadness, frustration. I'd spent a lot of time thinking about what we were going to be doing. And it was only this morning that I realized that the sadness had lifted. How deeply connected to this experience I was. For me, it was going to be a very connecting experience, both spending that time with my 2 brothers and spending that time in the places where we grew up. We had just enough time together to realize that each of us remembers different things. And the 3 of us together bring lots of additional thoughts. We sort of create a complete picture of the experience. And we missed all of that. And it's been sad. We're going to shoot again to do it next spring. But the question was for me last week, was I going to take this hard experience and make it harder? Was I going to get lost in complaining? Complaining about not being able to do it? Getting lost in the victim thing. Why us? Why'd this happen to us? Why'd Rob get this infection? How'd this happen to us? We deserve better. Of course we do. Maybe even a little anger, frustration. As all of you know, once you step into a hospital, you've completely given up control. You do things at their pace, on their time, in their way. And admittedly, there were some moments of frustration. Well, why can't they just get this addressed and turn them loose so we can go on our trip? So there were all of those things that can make it harder. We could have even fallen into a place of being impatient with one another. I mean, growing up as three guys with a lot of energy and enthusiasm and effort for life, and three very different personalities. Rob's 3 years younger than I am. Tim's 3 years younger than Rob. So we were all right there in the house at the same time. That produced its inevitable share of conflict and disconnection. But last week we were all together. We were not impatient. We didn't get lost in that. So this was, I guess this was meant to be as a way of giving me just the right experience for dealing with this topic that I had planned for today and Friday and next week. So let's take a moment and have each of you recall some of the hard experiences in your life, and picking out a couple that are medium hard. Nothing that was kind of frivolous and silly, but nothing that was really catastrophic. Picking out something that was hard and recalling that experience. And now, shifting your focus just a little bit, recalling what thoughts, emotions, and actions you might have engaged in that made something hard even harder. Really be discerning about what specific thoughts or emotions or actions occurred that made it harder. We've all had these experiences. You know, it's just inevitable. We've evolved as reactive beings, whether it's in our genes or it's our experiences. And as you become fully aware of a specific thought, emotion, or sensation or action that made things harder, really stay with whatever it is. And notice how this thought, emotion, or action is showing up in your body, connecting to the sensation. So this is an experience of being an observer, having some space of what's happened, of your experience. Both seeing clearly how life is hard and noticing our inclination to make it harder. Let's deepen this experience a little bit with a practice. Beginning with a couple of deep breaths, long, slow out breaths, letting go of that extra energy or tension. And settling in, feeling the support of the surface you're sitting on. dropping the shoulders, softening all over. Softening into an allowing and receptive state. And gradually shifting your attention to your breathing. Focusing your attention for a few breaths on the details of the in-breath and the details of the out-breath. Over the next few moments, expanding your awareness and noticing whatever thoughts are arising. As each thought arises, allowing it to be present. No resistance. Allowing, and then letting go. Allowing on the in-breath, letting go on the out-breath. Whatever thought arises, allowing and letting go. Noticing, allowing, letting go. Shifting now away from open awareness to a practice of kindness. Holding an image of yourself right in front of you. and recalling a recent struggle, something that was difficult for you to deal with. Noticing the sensations accompanying a sense of struggle. And offering yourself the same words of kindness that you would offer to a loved one or a close friend who's struggling. Saying those words silently to yourself, perhaps 2 or 3 times. And letting go of the experience of struggle, bringing to mind an experience of joy and happiness that you recently had. Imagining the expression on your face full of joy. Allowing that joy to flow through your whole being. And noticing to what extent these 3 practices, concentration, awareness, and kindness, have led to a greater sense of spaciousness in yourself, perhaps to a bit of discernment. These are the core practices.